pace set. It looked like it was a good start.
Let's take a look at that start again, Bobby, and maybe we can get an idea of what Jim McGee might be concerned with.
Well, you can see Emerson's on the left, Mansell's on the right. They're coming down. You can see they're still pretty close. Mansell's up there for a little bit, fell back. Emerson had about a car length on him when he started. But look at Tracy going by the outside. Now, that's Mansell's fault, not the starter's fault.
Well, you think the argument might be, though, that it seemed that Fittipaldi came to the right and crowded him a little?
No, I don't think so. I think that was really a good start.
Let's go to the pits, Jack Arute.
Paul, that was a calculated risk on the part of Team Penske. They determined before the start of the race they were going to attempt that. In the drivers' meeting, Nigel Mansell was quite outspoken about restarts, asked for a ruling on it, and the quote from Wally Dallenbach was, "Gentlemen, that's a problem on ovals. We'll deal with it when we get to the next oval." But after the meeting, Nigel huddled with Wally Dallenbach and continued his plaintive decree about the fact that he doesn't understand these starts where drivers can pass even if you're on the pole.
Well, the interesting point, Jack, don't you think, is maybe how Nigel Mansell lost Indianapolis, was on a restart. So this is one part of IndyCar racing he's just not familiar enough yet with. And I think the exciting thing now is we've got potentially the fastest car on the track running in third. We're going to see some passing attempts.
Probably the greatest thing that was said that puts a period on all of it was Bobby Rahal sitting in the back of the drivers' meeting saying, "Welcome to IndyCar racing, Nigel."
Montermini now battles with Al Unser Jr. in a fight for 7th place. This is the key battle on the circuit. They've sorted out at the top of the field. The actual rule is green to the front row is green to the field on most of the IndyCar events. Indianapolis, they prefer that you don't pass until after you're over the start-finish line. But once you see green, you can go.
One of the reasons Montermini has been so successful here is he does a lot of testing for the Benetton Formula One team. He has also tested for Ferrari a couple of years ago. He's very technically oriented, which has helped him tremendously.
And let's also keep in mind, it's very early in the race. These guys are running literally with full loads of fuel now. Sometimes even on the warm-up session in the morning, they don't run them full. But they are right now, so they're feeling the track out, and they're full loads mostly.
Relatively bad start for Mario. He's going to have a lot of ground to make up.
Well back as you're looking in 9th place for Mario Andretti as he comes through this curving front straightaway here on Belle Isle.
Another thing to remember, too, is that guys can't see very far ahead because there's cement walls on both sides. In most cases, they're only seeing, you can look right there and see. You can't really see what's happening ahead of them, so it takes a little while kind of to get into all the traffic that's going on.
They've widened this track a little bit this year to try to give the drivers better visibility, not necessarily to make it faster, though the speeds have been faster owing to tire and engine development.
And right in there is where they did it, Paul. You can see all those red cones on both sides. That's what we call the back straightaway. It's really not a straightaway, but it's a straightaway in that they don't have to back off the throttle through there.
14 turns on the track. Only 2 of them could be described as fast turns. The rest are second or low third gear turns. Very tight.
The view overhead from an Aerial Films helicopter, which helps us with our coverage here in Detroit, and gives you a marvelous view as the helicopter swoops down over the top of the cars as they run down these straightaways. The fight is at the front, and now we're taking a look at Johansson, who for a moment darted out and started to challenge Bobby Rahal.
As we watch in practice, Johansson's really been aggressive. So we're going to start watching for him being aggressive in the race. He's not done too well this year so far, but he does get on the gas.
An update on Stefan Johansson from Gary Gerald.
Well, there was a report from the crew that Johansson got hit from behind by Robbie Gordon. They don't think there's anything seriously wrong, but keep in mind, Johansson was knocked out early at Long Beach. He was knocked out early last week at Milwaukee. He's had contact early here, but this time he stays in the race.
Well, Robbie Gordon sits right behind him on the track. In the meantime, Bobby Rahal is closing in once again on Nigel Mansell.
Indeed, as promising as Johansson from Sweden has been this year, he has yet to record a top 10 finish. He was third last year, as we've said. This race means a lot to him. It's a real pivotal race for Stefan Johansson.
Let's go back and take another view of this start, this time from this very same camera that is mounted on Bobby Rahal's car. Again, some concern in the Newman Haas pits as to the nature of the start. Bobby Unser, that's Paul Tracy just ahead.
Yes, and you can see Stefan Johansson on the left. There they're taking off. You can see the starting line went way back from what we saw. The trick to it is look on the left there, the car that's in the middle of that picture. That's Paul Tracy. He still went by Nigel. Nigel just didn't get the start. It's never the rule that the cars have to be totally even when they go across the start and finish line. That's totally up to the starter himself. And that was a relatively close start. It's just the road races are so important.
Perhaps we can get a further update on the concerns of the Newman-Haas team. Again, let's go to Gary Gerould.
Well, Jim McGee has now settled into the normal race routine, but I'll tell you, on that opening green flag, he was very angry, Paul, and there was a kart official or an IndyCar official right across the wall. He immediately summoned them. There was a lot of gesturing. They wanted a yellow flag and a restart. They didn't get it as they lobbied race control.
Well, Paul, that's really never happened. I know Jim is mad. He's a real racer. The guy is really feisty, but it's never happened that I can ever remember.
So Jim McGee watches his driver, who currently runs in 3rd place. Mario Andretti is back in 9th. Those are the 2 Newman-Haas cars. And at the front of the field, the Penske team leads it, led by Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. We're back at the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix, where Emerson Fittipaldi leads Paul Tracy by 0.4 of a second. You see the rest of the intervals down through the top 6. Robbie Gordon has begun to try and put the pressure on Stefan Johansson, who in turn is pressuring Bobby Rahal. That is taking some of the pressure off the front 2 runners. Now look at Johansson as he closes on the back of Rahal.
Rahal's falling back just a little bit. I don't mean he has a problem, but he's falling back just a little bit. That's giving Johansson a little bit of hope. If he puts the pressure on Rahal, Rahal's going to have to get it up and start putting it on Mansell, who's right in front of him.
If there was a concern, he's not really showing any problem whatsoever, and neither is Gordon, who is just behind them.
Now, we have to keep in mind also of how difficult it is to pass. If you notice, as we go around the track here, the cars are almost always turning, hardly ever going straight. So, therefore, a pass has to be done in the turns. So, Rahal, as you see him looking, or Johansson looking at Rahal, he's trying to figure out where Rahal is weak, and he'll have to do in the turns.
Remember that this is a confrontation between a Lola in the hands of Rahal there, number 1, you see it, and a Penske car in the hands of Johansson. In other words, Johansson is driving a car that is a sister car to the 2 cars that are standing 1-2 at this point.
And also, Sam, I want to mention that the Penske car is a 93 car. It's like almost being part of the Penske team. They have the same engine and the same chassis as Penske has in his car.
Emerson Fittipaldi just ran the fastest lap of the race, just over 100 miles an hour, and immediately Paul Tracy, running in 2nd, came back at 100.5 miles an hour. So there's a speed battle at the front.
Interesting thing from a career standpoint, career path, to see the view from Bobby Rahal's car. Back when Emerson Fittipaldi drove a Penske car for an independent team, that was Pat Patrick's team in 1989, it got Rogers' attention, and Emerson moved into Rogers' team. Now we see Stefan Johansson driving for Tony Bettenhausen's team, and there's every chance that Rogers taking a real good look at this young Swedish driver who has such a great background in Formula One. You see him there right behind Bobby Rahal.
Rahal being challenged by Johansson. We'll try to get on board with you a couple of times, because this is an opportunity to really listen to the gears. The drivers climb up and down through their gearboxes on this rather tight circuit. 2.1 miles around, 14 turns. Johansson and Rahal close again on Nigel Mansell. Robbie Gordon is kind of waiting station back in 6th position. Let's go to Jack Arute for an update on all of this first lap problem.
Paul, the kart officials are now talking to Rick Reineman and Chuck Sprague. They have just informed him that because Emerson Fittipaldi jumped the start by more than 1/4 of a length, they are going to bring Fittipaldi in for a stop-and-go penalty.
Well, maybe Nigel Mansell does understand the rules, Bobby.
Well, I certainly guessed that one wrong. In all my years of racing, I have never seen that happen before. There's Jim McGee.
Jim McGee's talking to Nigel Mansell on the radio, and no doubt getting him up to speed.
Obviously telling him, and another precedent has been set. That's for certain sure.
All right, now what this means, of course, is that Paul Tracy will be leading the race. His pace has been more or less controlled by Emerson Fittipaldi up to this point. Tracy will be on his own, and he has been notorious for having trouble when leading the race, especially when coming up behind back markers.
Even more on this story. Here's Gary Gerould.
Paul, we indicated earlier that McGee was angry and he lobbied an IndyCar official. He wasn't satisfied after they had said, no, there'll be no penalty. He went and got Billy Camphausen, who's one of the lead officials on pit road. Camphausen had a hurried discussion. Then they came up with this possible decision. Let's go up pit road to Jack.
Well, Gary, the lobbying effort continues. Now the IndyCar official went to Roger Penske and to Rick Mears. Their retort to this potential stop-and-go penalty is there is no rule about how far you can jump a start before you're brought in. So this is not over yet, folks.
And Johansson was able to move during that exchange around Rahal, and now he begins to close on Nigel Mansell.
Well, I just want to say one more time on that start. The starts, as long as I've been racing, which is a long time, have always been up to the starter, the guy standing up there waving the flag. If he doesn't like the lineup of those cars, he's not supposed to throw the flag. So if they do pull him in today, they will have established a new precedent never done before in the history of IndyCar racing.
And from your tone, do I understand you're not happy with it?
I would be on Roger Penske's side in this particular case because it's never been done before.
So Emerson Fittipaldi still remains in front of Paul Tracy, though we wait to see whether or not they will give, and he will respond to a black flag, bringing him into the pits.
So far in the season, the two best teams in IndyCar racing have been this one, Penske's, and the Newman Haas, represented by Nigel Mansell. They have won all of the races held so far this year between them, and they are first, second, and third right now.
So Fittipaldi continues in the lead, followed by Paul Tracy. Nigel Mansell is third. Johansson made the only move since the start and sits in fourth place now. Bobby Rahal is fifth. Robbie Gordon is sixth. Montermini sits in seventh place.
Emerson Fittipaldi, ever since Indianapolis, has been so cocky. He's been so confident. He's been late to a lot of his things. He likes to be late to things, do things strictly on his own time, late to a lot of interviews, and he just doesn't care. He's cocky, he's confident, he's had a wonderful time since Indy.
There's Montermini. Al Unser Jr. is closing on him, and just behind him is Raul Boesel. Ongoing battle for seventh place, and Boesel is closing down quickly.
This is where the big fight's going to start right now, Paul, because there has to be pressure. And so far, early in this race, really haven't seen as much passing as I would have thought. The cars much faster than they were last year. Maybe they're not faster. Where passing is even harder than we anticipated.
There's another car in this string, too, as Danny Sullivan now begins to close on Boesel. So all four of those cars are running together on the circuit and beginning to fight with one another.
It's extraordinary that a driver of Al Unser Jr.'s experience is running behind Montermini at this point.
And Montermini is doing one heck of a good job, Sam, and he's been doing it so far all weekend.
Well, he has that Chevrolet engine, which has to be down 50 or 60 horsepower at least to Little Al's Chevrolet C engine.
But remember, this track equalizes horsepower. Horsepower is not so important here, so everybody knows, because the straightaways are short. You don't have the long straightaways where you're pushing really high speeds.
Back up watching Johansson as he closes now with Nigel Mansell, and this battle continues for third place. So at the front of the field, still Fittipaldi. Look at them use the curves, though, and this suspension move as